The fork felt heavy in my hand as I watched my husband's mouth move, forming words that didn't make sense at first. We sat in the most expensive restaurant in the city, the kind of place with crystal chandeliers and white tablecloths so pristine they looked like fresh snow. Julian had insisted on this dinner, said we needed to talk about something important. I'd worn my favorite emerald green dress, the one that made my brown skin glow under the lights. I'd even styled my natural hair in those soft curls he used to compliment every single day. But now, sitting across from him in his perfectly pressed navy suit, I realized I'd dressed up for my own execution. "I'm in love with Simone," he said, cutting into his steak like he'd just commented on the weather. "I've been in love with her for a while now. I want a divorce, Naomi." The restaurant noise faded to a dull hum. I could see other diners laughing at nearby tables, could see the waiter approaching with our wine, could see everything with this strange clarity that comes when your world tilts sideways. Simone. His assistant. The woman who'd been in our home, who'd smiled at me while organizing his calendar, who'd sent me a birthday card just 3 months ago with little hearts drawn in the corners. "Did you hear me?" Julian asked, finally looking up from his plate. His green eyes held no warmth, no regret. Just impatience, like I was taking too long to respond to a simple question. I set down my fork carefully, precisely, making sure it didn't clatter against the fine china. My hands didn't shake. That surprised me. I thought they would shake. "When?" The word came out steady, almost cold. Julian blinked. He'd been expecting tears probably. Maybe shouting. The restaurant was full of his business associates, people who knew us, who'd toasted our marriage 3 years ago at our lavish wedding. He'd chosen this place deliberately, counting on my embarrassment to keep me quiet and compliant. "Does it matter?" he said, taking a sip of his wine. "Look, I'm trying to be mature about this. Simone and I have something real. You and I, we've been going through the motions for months. You must have felt it too. Going through the motions." I stared at this man I'd loved, this man I'd supported through every business deal, every late night, every stress-filled crisis. I'd given up my own career in interior design to be the perfect wife, to host his dinner parties, to smile at his clients, to make our home a sanctuary he could retreat to. I'd poured everything into this marriage while my own dreams collected dust in the corners of my mind. "We'll split everything fairly," Julian continued, and now there was a hint of satisfaction in his voice. He thought he'd won. "You can keep the apartment in the city. I'll take the house in Connecticut. We'll divide the accounts. My lawyer will contact your lawyer tomorrow." "I don't have a lawyer," I said quietly. "Well, get one." He signaled for the waiter. "I'm not trying to be cruel, Naomi, but I deserve to be happy. We both do. This marriage was a mistake. A mistake." 3 years condensed into one word. I thought about our wedding day, how he'd cried when I walked down the aisle. I thought about the night I stayed up until 3 in the morning helping him prepare for the presentation that landed him his biggest investor. I thought about the dinner party where I'd smoothly redirected a conversation that could have cost him a major deal, using connections from my own family that I'd carefully cultivated. But none of that mattered now because he was in love with Simone. The waiter arrived and Julian ordered dessert. Dessert. He was ordering dessert after telling me he wanted to end our marriage. The absurdity of it hit me like cold water. "Will Madame also have dessert?" the waiter asked, his young face carefully neutral. But I could see the pity in his eyes. He'd heard. Maybe everyone had heard. "No," I said. "I'm finished." I stood up, smoothing down my green dress. Julian looked up, startled. "Where are you going?" "Home," I said. "To our home. The one you're planning to take in Connecticut." "Naomi, sit down. We need to discuss the details." I picked up my purse, a beautiful red leather bag that Julian had bought me for Christmas. Or had Simone picked it out? Had she been choosing my gifts while sleeping with my husband? "Your lawyer can contact my lawyer," I said, using his own words. "I'm sure you've already thought of everything." "Naomi." His voice had an edge now. "Don't make a scene. Don't make a scene." That's what he was worried about. Not my pain, not my shattered heart, but whether I would embarrass him in front of his colleagues. I looked at him for a long moment, memorizing this version of Julian. The cruel stranger wearing my husband's face. Then I turned and walked through the restaurant with my head high, my heels clicking against the marble floor. Every step felt like walking through water, but I didn't let myself falter. The cool night air hit my face when I stepped outside. The valet hurried to get me a taxi. I climbed in and gave the driver our address in Connecticut. Our home. The sprawling house that I'd decorated, that I'd turned from a sterile showpiece into a real home with warmth and beauty. During the hour-long drive I didn't cry. I sat perfectly still, watching the lights of the city give way to the darkness of the suburbs, then to the tree-lined streets of our wealthy neighborhood. The silence felt enormous, pressing against my ears like deep water. The house was dark when I arrived. I paid the driver and stood on the front steps, looking at the red door I'd chosen, the potted plants I'd arranged, the welcome mat I'd picked out because it had made me smile. Inside, everything was exactly as I'd left it. The living room with its cream sofa and bright blue throw pillows. The kitchen with copper pots hanging over the island. The bedroom with our wedding photo on the nightstand, both of us smiling like we'd never known pain. I walked through each room slowly, seeing it all with new eyes. How much of myself had I poured into this place? How much of my own identity had I sacrificed to build this life with Julian? In his home office, I turned on the light. His desk was neat, organized. Julian prided himself on order, on control. I sat in his leather chair and turned on his computer. He'd never bothered to hide his password from me. Why would he? I was his wife, his partner, someone he trusted completely. The computer screen glowed to life. I stared at it for a long moment, my reflection ghostly in the glass. Then I opened his email. It didn't take long to find them. Months of messages to Simone. Years, actually. The affair had been going on since before our second anniversary. I scrolled through romantic messages, plans to meet, complaints about me. In one email, he called me clingy because I'd asked him to come to my mother's birthday dinner. In another, he told Simone that I was useful for business connections, but lacked intellectual depth. I read every single message. Let each word cut into me like tiny knives, sharp and precise. Because I needed to feel this. I needed to let the anger build, to let the rage simmer underneath the shock. When I finally closed the laptop, it was 3 a.m. I hadn't cried once. Instead, something cold and clear had settled over me. Something like purpose. Julian thought I would crumble. He thought I would beg or scream or fall apart. He'd counted on my love, on my devotion, on 3 years of me putting him first. But as I sat in his office in the house I'd made a home, wearing the green dress I'd chosen to please him, I made a decision. Julian wanted a divorce. He would get one. But it would be on my terms, not his. Morning light filtered through the bedroom curtains, bright and harsh. I'd stayed up all night, hadn't even tried to sleep. Instead, I'd spent the hours going through every file in Julian's office, every document, every piece of paper that might matter. My eyes burned with exhaustion, but my mind felt strangely sharp, like I'd been sleepwalking through my marriage and had finally woken up. Julian came home around 7. I heard his car in the driveway, heard his key in the lock. I was sitting at the kitchen island, still in my green dress from last night, a cup of black coffee growing cold in front of me. He stopped when he saw me, his briefcase dangling from one hand. He looked tired too, shadows under his green eyes. Had he spent the night with Simone? Probably. The thought should have hurt more than it did. Naomi, he said carefully, I thought you'd be upset. Did you? I took a sip of the cold coffee, watching him over the rim of the cup. I stayed at a hotel. Gave you space. He set down his briefcase, loosened his tie. Still in the same navy suit from last night. I think it's best if I stay there until we sort out the details. Fine. He'd been prepared for resistance. I could see it in the way he'd squared his shoulders, ready to defend himself. My calm agreement threw him off balance. I'll have my lawyer draw up the papers, he continued. Like I said, I want to be fair. You can have the apartment, and I'll make sure you're taken care of financially. Taken care of? Like I was a child or a pet. What about the business? I asked. Julian's company, Hartwell Enterprises, had grown exponentially in the 3 years we'd been married. He'd started it just before we met, a small consulting firm for tech startups. Now it was worth millions with major clients and a staff of 50. What about it? Julian's voice went flat. I helped build it, I said quietly. The Patterson deal. I introduced you to Robert Patterson at my cousin's wedding. That account alone brought in $2 million last year. Naomi, you're not a partner in my company. The Jean investment. I spent 3 months building a relationship with Linda Jean, learning about her interests, making sure she felt comfortable. You closed that deal at a dinner party in our home, at a table I set, with food I planned. What's your point? Julian's jaw tightened. My point is that your company's success isn't just yours. I stood up, smoothing my wrinkled dress. And I want what I'm owed. He actually laughed. You're not getting any of Hartwell Enterprises. You want to play hardball, Naomi? Fine. But you'll lose. I didn't respond. Just picked up my phone from the counter. I'm going upstairs to shower, I said. When I come back down, I want you gone. Julian stared at me like he'd never seen me before. Maybe he hadn't. Maybe he'd only ever seen the version of me that I'd performed for him, the agreeable wife who smiled and supported and never demanded anything for herself. "This isn't you," he said finally. "You're hurt and angry, I get it. But this isn't who you are." "You don't know who I am," I said. "You never did." I left him standing in the kitchen and went upstairs. In the bathroom, I peeled off the green dress and dropped it in the trash. I never wanted to see it again. The shower water was hot, almost scalding, and I stood under it until my skin turned red. When I came back downstairs in jeans and a bright red sweater, Julian was gone. The house felt different without him in it. Lighter maybe. Or just emptier. I made more coffee and sat down at my laptop. Time to call in a favor. Beverly Okafor had been my roommate in college, back when I was studying interior design and she was preparing for law school. We'd lost touch after graduation, the way people do when life pulls them in different directions. But I'd followed her career online. She'd become one of the top divorce attorneys in the state, known for her fierce representation of women in high-asset divorces. I found her law firm's website and stared at her photo. She looked powerful in her navy suit, her natural hair styled in an elegant updo. The caption said she was a partner at Morrison & Okafor. I dialed the number before I could talk myself out of it. "Morrison & Okafor, how may I direct your call?" "Beverly Okafor, please. Tell her it's Naomi Price calling." There was a pause, then hold music. I half expected to be told she wasn't available, that I'd need to schedule an appointment weeks from now. But then her voice came through the line, warm and familiar. Naomi Price. Now that's a name I haven't heard in a while. "Hi Beverly," I said, and suddenly my voice cracked. "I need a lawyer." 3 hours later, I sat in Beverly's office in downtown Manhattan. The space was modern, all glass and steel, with a view of the city that probably cost a fortune. Beverly sat across from me in a sharp maroon suit, her dark eyes sharp with intelligence. "Tell me everything," she said. So I did. The dinner, the affair, Julian's dismissive attitude. The emails I'd found, the timeline of his betrayal. The business connections I'd provided, the deals I'd helped close. Beverly took notes on a yellow legal pad, her pen moving quickly. When I finished, she sat back in her chair. "He really doesn't know what's coming, does he?" "I don't understand," I said. "New York is an equitable distribution state," Beverly explained. "That means marital assets get divided fairly, not necessarily equally. And fairly takes into account lots of factors, including contributions to a spouse's business or career. But I'm not a partner in his company. Doesn't matter. You made documented contributions that directly increased the value of his business. We can prove that your networking, your connections, your social skills helped him close major deals. That makes you entitled to a portion of the business's value." Hope flickered in my chest, small but bright. "Really? Really?" Beverly leaned forward. "But we need to be smart about this. We need documentation for everything. Emails, text messages, calendar entries showing your involvement in business functions. Testimony from clients who can verify your role. Can you get that?" "Yes," I said. "I can get all of it." "Good." Beverly smiled, and it was a fierce expression. "Then let's show your husband exactly what he's losing." I spent the next week building my case like I was constructing a house, one careful brick at a time. Every morning I woke up at 6 and went straight to my laptop. Every night I worked until midnight. Julian had moved into a hotel, and his absence made it easier to focus. The evidence was everywhere once I started looking for it. 3 years of emails sitting in my own account, messages I'd sent to Julian's clients, following up on conversations from dinner parties. Thank you notes I'd written on his behalf. Introductions I'd made between his company and my family's connections. My family. God, I'd neglected them so much during this marriage. My mother had called less and less over the years, hurt by my constant unavailability. My younger brother Terrence had stopped inviting me to family gatherings after I'd missed 3 in a row because Julian needed me at business events. I called my mother on Wednesday evening. She answered on the second ring. "Naomi?" She sounded surprised. "Is everything okay?" "I'm getting divorced," I said, and saying it out loud made it real in a way it hadn't been before. Silence on the other end. Then, "Oh baby. I'm so sorry." "Don't be," I said. "It's the best thing that could happen to me." I told her everything. About Julian's affair, about Simone, about the years I'd wasted trying to be the perfect wife. My mother listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she said the words I needed to hear. "I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. Your father would be proud too." My father had died 5 years ago, right before I met Julian. Sometimes I wondered if my grief had made me vulnerable, made me rush into a relationship with a man who seemed strong and stable when I felt anything but. Can you help me with something? I asked. I need proof that I introduced Julian to clients through family connections. Do you remember the Patterson wedding? Of course, my mother said. You brought Julian, and you spent the whole reception networking for him instead of dancing with your cousins. Do you have the guest list? Any photos? I have everything, baby. I'll scan it all and send it to you. My mother came through like she always did. By the next morning, I had photos of Julian talking to Robert Patterson, with me clearly visible in the frame making the introduction. I had the guest list showing who attended, cross-referenced with clients Julian had signed in the following months. Beverly called it building the narrative. Juries, judges, they all respond to stories, she explained during one of our many phone calls. We're not just showing that you helped your husband's business. We're showing a pattern of sacrifice and support that he took advantage of. I also started documenting my own skills, my own worth. Before Julian, I'd been building a career in interior design and event planning. I'd had clients, had been developing a reputation. I'd given all of that up when he said his career needed to take priority, when he said we couldn't both be focused on work. Looking back, I could see how he'd isolated me step by step, convincing me to drop my clients because their schedules conflicted with his needs, suggesting I focus on our home instead of just a hobby, making me feel selfish whenever I mentioned my own ambitions. On Friday, I drove into the city to meet with one of my old clients, Patricia Greenwood. She owned a chain of boutique hotels and had hired me 5 years ago to redesign her flagship location. I'd done 3 properties for her before I met Julian. Patricia met me at a coffee shop in Chelsea, her silver hair styled in a sleek bob. She hugged me tightly when she saw me. Naomi, it's been too long. I've missed you. We sat by the window and I explained what had happened. Patricia's face went through a range of emotions, from shock to anger to determination. That man is a fool, she said flatly. You were brilliant. The work you did for my hotels. I still get compliments on the design. In fact, I'm opening a new location in Boston, and I was going to hire someone else since you weren't available. But if you're back in business. I am, I said, the words feeling powerful in my mouth. I'm definitely back in business. We spent the next hour discussing the project. Patricia wanted a boutique hotel that felt both modern and welcoming, with spaces that encouraged guests to linger and connect. I could already see it in my mind, could feel that old creative energy stirring. I'll put together a proposal, I said. Give me 2 weeks. Take your time, Patricia said. But Naomi, this time don't let anyone make you feel small. You have real talent. Don't hide it again. I drove back to Connecticut with my mind spinning. A new project. A chance to prove that I was more than just Julian's wife, more than the woman who'd sacrificed everything for a man who'd betrayed her. At home, I spread out all my evidence on the dining room table. Photos, emails, calendar entries, financial records. It looked like a detective's case board, everything connected by threads of proof. Beverly had also hired a forensic accountant, a quiet man named Thomas who specialized in finding hidden assets. He'd gone through Julian's financial records with a careful eye, and what he'd found made my blood run cold. Julian had been moving money. Small amounts at first, then larger sums. Transferring funds to offshore accounts, hiding assets in shell companies. He'd been planning this divorce long before he'd told me about it, making sure he could protect his wealth. But he'd made mistakes. Left digital trails. Assumed I would never fight back hard enough to find them. This is good, Beverly had said when Thomas presented his findings. This shows intent to defraud. A judge won't like this at all. I worked on Patricia's proposal over the weekend, and the creative process felt like breathing again after holding my breath for years. I designed spaces with bright blue accent walls and living green plants, areas filled with natural light and open air. No dark corners, no shadowy spaces. Everything visible and clear. By Sunday night, I had a preliminary design that made me proud. I also had a complete file of evidence for Beverly, everything organized and documented. Julian called Monday morning. I let it go to voicemail. Naomi, we need to talk. My lawyer says your lawyer is being unreasonable. You're asking for too much. Let's meet and discuss this like adults. Like adults. As if I was the one being childish for wanting what I deserved. I didn't call him back. Instead, I sent everything to Beverly and waited for her next move. The waiting was the hardest part. I cleaned the house obsessively, reorganizing closets and scrubbing floors. I worked on Patricia's hotel proposal, refining every detail. I called my mother every day and slowly started rebuilding the relationships I'd let deteriorate. Terrence came to visit on Thursday. My younger brother stood in the doorway of the house, looking around with wide eyes. "This place is huge," he said. "It's too big," I admitted. "Come in." We sat in the kitchen and I made him the coconut cake our grandmother used to make. Terrence told me about his job as a high school history teacher, about his girlfriend Rita, about all the life I'd missed while I was playing perfect wife. "I'm sorry," I said, "for disappearing. For choosing Julian over family." "You're here now," Terrence said simply. "That's what matters." That night, after my brother left, I stood in the living room and looked around at the home I'd created. The bright blue pillows I'd chosen, the art on the walls, the carefully arranged furniture. This house was beautiful because I'd made it beautiful. Not Julian. My phone rang. "Beverly." "We're ready," she said. "Tomorrow we serve him with papers. At his office." "Good," I said. "Naomi," Beverly's voice was gentle. "Are you sure you're ready for this? Once we do this, there's no going back. This will be war." I thought about Julian's face at that dinner, so cold and casual as he destroyed our marriage. I thought about Simone, probably sitting in some hotel room right now, thinking she'd won. I thought about all the years I'd made myself smaller, quieter, less significant so that Julian could shine. "I'm ready," I said. "Let's go to war." Beverly insisted I come to the office serving. "You need to see his reaction," she'd said. "You need to watch him realize you're serious." So I dressed carefully that morning. A royal blue dress that hugged my curves, paired with red heels that made me 3 inches taller. I styled my hair in soft waves and applied makeup with precision. I looked successful, powerful, beautiful. Everything Julian had tried to diminish. The drive into Manhattan felt surreal. Beverly met me in the lobby of Julian's building, a glass tower in Midtown. She wore a charcoal suit and carried a leather briefcase that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. "Ready?" she asked. "Absolutely." We rode the elevator to the 15th floor, where Hartwell Enterprises occupied half the space. The receptionist, a young man with carefully styled hair, looked up as we entered. "We're here to see Julian Hartwell," Beverly announced. "We don't have an appointment." "I'm sorry, but Mr. Hartwell is in a meeting and—" "Tell him his wife is here," I said calmly. "He'll see us." The receptionist's eyes widened. He picked up the phone, spoke quietly into it. Seconds later, Julian appeared in the hallway, confusion written across his face. "Naomi? What are you doing here?" He looked different in his office environment. More confident, more in control. This was his kingdom, and he clearly thought showing up here would intimidate me. "We need to speak privately," Beverly said. "Your office, please." Julian's eyes moved from me to Beverly, and I saw the moment he understood. This wasn't a reconciliation visit. This was business. "Fine," he said tightly. "Follow me." His office was exactly what I'd expected. Expensive furniture, awards on the walls, a view of the city that stretched for miles. And there, sitting in one of the visitor chairs, was Simone. She stood up when we entered, her dark hair pulled back in a sleek bun. She wore a professional black skirt suit and held a tablet like a shield. Her eyes met mine, and I saw guilt flash across her face before she masked it. "Simone, give us the room," Julian said. "Actually," Beverly interrupted, "she should stay. She's mentioned in the filing." Simone went pale. Julian's face darkened. "What filing?" Beverly opened her briefcase and pulled out a thick stack of papers. "These are divorce proceedings, Mr. Hartwell. You're being served." She handed the papers to Julian, who took them automatically. "You'll find we're seeking an equitable distribution of all marital assets, including a significant portion of Hartwell Enterprises based on Mrs. Hartwell's documented contributions to the business." Julian flipped through the papers, his face getting redder with each page. "This is ridiculous. Naomi had nothing to do with my company's success." "The documentation says otherwise," Beverly replied smoothly. "We have evidence of client introductions, business development activities, and strategic planning sessions that Mrs. Hartwell facilitated or directly participated in. We're also seeking compensation for the career she sacrificed to support yours." "Career?" Julian laughed, but it sounded forced. "She did some interior design projects. That's hardly a career." "I built a successful business before I met you," I said quietly. All 3 of them turned to look at me. I had clients who loved my work. I had a reputation. I gave that up because you said your career needed to come first. You said we'd both benefit if I focused on supporting you. That was your choice, Julian shot back. Was it? Beverly interjected. Because we have emails where you explicitly asked Mrs. Hartwell to cancel client meetings to attend your business functions. We have text messages where you criticized her for spending time on her hobby instead of your needs. Simone was edging toward the door, clearly wanting to escape. I looked at her directly for the first time since entering the office. You should know, I said, that Julian told me about your relationship at dinner, at a restaurant full of people we know. He ordered dessert afterward. Simone's eyes widened. She looked at Julian, who wouldn't meet her gaze. Naomi, don't bring her into this, Julian said. She's already in it, I replied. You brought her into it when you decided she was more important than our marriage vows. The filing also includes an alienation of affection claim against Miss Fletcher, Beverly added casually. Given that the affair began while she was employed by Mr. Hartwell, there are also potential workplace conduct issues. You can't do this, Simone said, her voice shaking. I'll lose my job. You should have thought of that before sleeping with someone else's husband, Beverly said without sympathy. Julian finally found his voice. This is blackmail. This is the law, Beverly corrected. You wanted a divorce, Mr. Hartwell. Now you're getting one. But you'll find that Mrs. Hartwell isn't the pushover you thought she was. We're willing to negotiate, Beverly continued, but our starting position is clear. Mrs. Hartwell deserves significant compensation for her contributions to your business and for the career opportunities she sacrificed. We're also seeking the Connecticut house, half of all liquid assets, and ongoing support payments until she's re-established in her career. That's everything, Julian sputtered. You want to take everything I've built. You built it together, I said. You just forgot the together part. Julian's hands were shaking as he held the papers. I gave you a good life, Naomi. I took care of you. You took me for granted, I corrected. There's a difference. Beverly snapped her briefcase shut with a decisive click. You have 2 weeks to respond through your attorney. I suggest you take this seriously, Mr. Hartwell. The evidence we have is substantial, and frankly, your attempt to hide assets in offshore accounts isn't going to play well with a judge. Julian's face went white. What are you talking about? Did you think we wouldn't find them? Beverly smiled. We have a forensic accountant. A very good one. Every transfer, every shell company, every attempt to hide marital assets is documented and will be presented to the court. I watched Julian's world crumble in real time. His confidence evaporated, replaced by panic. Simone looked like she might be sick. I'll fight this, Julian said, but his voice lacked conviction. You're welcome to try, Beverly replied. But I should mention that we're also prepared to make the details of the affair public record. The timeline, the workplace relationship, everything. I'm sure your clients and investors would find it fascinating reading. That's revenge, Julian said weakly. That's consequence, I corrected. You made choices, Julian. Now you get to live with them. I turned to leave and Beverly followed. At the door, I paused and looked back at my husband. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. The powerful billionaire image had cracked, revealing the insecure man underneath. I loved you, I said quietly. I would have spent my whole life supporting you, building with you, being your partner. But you threw that away for someone who'll leave you the moment things get hard. Simone made a small sound of protest, but I ignored her. Goodbye, Julian, I said. I hope she was worth it. We walked out of his office, through the reception area, into the elevator. The doors closed on Julian's stunned face. As soon as we were alone, Beverly grinned. That, she said, was beautiful. You were perfect. I looked at my reflection in the elevator's polished surface. The woman looking back at me was strong, composed, victorious. Not the broken wife Julian had expected. Thank you, I said, for believing me, for fighting for me. Thank you for having the courage to fight, Beverly replied. A lot of women in your position would have accepted whatever their husbands offered. You demanded what you deserve. The elevator descended, and with each floor I felt lighter, freer. Like I was leaving more than just a building behind. Outside, the afternoon sun was bright and clear. No clouds, no shadows. Just pure, brilliant light. What happens next? I asked. Now we wait for his response, Beverly said. But based on what we just saw, I think he'll be willing to negotiate. He knows we have him cornered. And if he doesn't negotiate? Beverly's smile turned fierce. Then we go to court and take him apart piece by piece. Either way, you're going to get what you deserve. I believed her. For the first time in years, I believed in myself too. Patricia's hotel project consumed my days in the best possible way. I'd forgotten what it felt like to lose myself in creative work, to wake up excited about design challenges and color palettes. The Boston property was a 4-story building near the waterfront, with large windows that let in floods of natural light. I designed each floor with a different color story. The lobby featured emerald green accent walls with brass fixtures and live plants cascading from ceiling installations. The second floor rooms had royal blue headboards and white linens, crisp and inviting. The third floor went bolder with deep maroon carpets and gold-framed mirrors. The fourth floor, the premium suites, combined all 3 colors in sophisticated ways that felt cohesive rather than chaotic. "This is extraordinary," Patricia said when I presented the full proposal 2 weeks after Julian had been served. We sat in her office, surrounded by fabric samples and paint chips. "You've gotten even better." "I forgot how much I loved this," I admitted. "Then don't forget again." Patricia leaned forward. "I want you to do all my future projects. 5 hotels over the next 3 years. Full creative control, competitive rates, and your name featured prominently. I'm talking about building your brand, Naomi." The offer took my breath away. This wasn't just a project. This was a career resurrection. "I don't have a company anymore," I said. "I closed everything down when I married Julian." "Then open a new one," Patricia said simply. "I'll give you an advance to cover startup costs. Hire a team. Build something that's entirely yours." I signed the contract that afternoon. Walking out of Patricia's office, I felt 10 feet tall. The next week flew by in a blur of activity. I registered a new business, Naomi Price Interiors and Events. I rented a small office space in Manhattan, just 2 rooms but with huge windows that faced east, catching the morning sun. I bought new equipment, set up accounts, created a website. My mother helped me move in, bringing sandwiches and sweet tea like we were kids again. "Your father would be so proud," she said, looking around the empty office. "Remember how he always said you had an artist's eye?" "I remember," I said softly. My father had been my biggest supporter, attending every school art show, praising every design project. He died before seeing me build a real career, and I'd let Julian convince me to abandon that dream. But maybe I could honor my father's memory by succeeding now. I hired 2 people that first month. Rachel, a recent design school graduate with incredible technical skills and fresh ideas. And Andre, a project manager with 15 years of experience who'd been laid off from a larger firm and was looking for something new. "Small team, big ambitions," Andre said on his first day. He wore a bright green shirt that made his dark skin glow. "I like it." We worked 18-hour days getting ready for the Boston project. I traveled to Massachusetts twice a week, meeting with contractors and suppliers. Rachel created detailed technical drawings. Andre managed schedules and budgets with military precision. The work was exhausting and exhilarating. Every decision was mine. Every success belonged to me and my team, not to a husband who took credit for my contributions. Julian's lawyer had responded to our filing with outrage and threats, but Beverly had been unmoved. We'd gone through 2 rounds of negotiation, each time Julian trying to lowball the settlement, each time us holding firm with our evidence. "He's stalling," Beverly told me during one of our weekly calls. "Hoping you'll get tired and accept less." "Don't." "I won't," I promised. Beverly had become more than my lawyer. She was a friend, a mentor, someone who understood what it meant to build something in a world that often dismissed women's contributions. "There's a networking event next Tuesday," she mentioned. "Professional women in business. You should come. Start making connections in your own right, not just as Julian's wife." The event was held at a gallery in Soho, modern art on the walls and women in power suits filling the space. I wore a red dress and held a glass of white wine, feeling simultaneously confident and terrified. "You look lost," a voice said beside me. I turned to find a tall woman with short silver hair and kind eyes. "First time at one of these? That obvious?" I said. "Only because you're standing in the corner like you're at a middle school dance." She extended her hand. "Angela Morrison. I own a construction company. Naomi Price. Interior design and event planning." We talked for 20 minutes and Angela introduced me to 5 other women. A real estate developer. A restaurant owner. An architect. A hotel chain executive who wasn't Patricia but knew of her work. Each conversation led to another, and by the end of the night, I had 10 new business cards and 3 potential projects. "The key to networking," Angela told me as the event wound down, "is authentic connection. Don't just collect cards. Build real relationships." I thought about Julian, about how he'd built his business on relationships I'd facilitated. But these relationships were mine. built on my skills, my personality, my value. Over the next month, my business grew faster than I'd anticipated. Word spread about the Boston Hotel project. I was featured in a design blog, a small mention but meaningful. 2 restaurants hired me to redesign their dining spaces. A corporate office wanted me to create welcoming common areas. I had to hire 2 more people. Then 3 more. By the time fall arrived, Naomi Price Interiors and Events had a team of 8 and a waiting list of clients. The Connecticut house sold quickly. I'd accepted that I would lose it in the divorce negotiations, and honestly, I was relieved. Too many bad memories haunted those rooms. I found an apartment in Brooklyn, a beautiful space with exposed brick and tall windows that let in gorgeous natural light. The neighborhood was diverse and vibrant, full of artists and young families and people building lives that mattered. I decorated my new home with intention. Every piece of furniture, every painting, every throw pillow was chosen because I loved it, not because it fit some image of what a billionaire's wife should have. My bedroom had a maroon accent wall. My living room featured bright blue curtains. My kitchen had red bar stools that made me smile every time I walked in. This was my space. Mine alone. And it felt more like home than that Connecticut mansion ever had. The divorce proceedings dragged on, but I didn't let them consume me. I focused on my work, on rebuilding my life, on reconnecting with family and friends I'd neglected. Terrence and Rita came over for dinner one Sunday. We cooked together, laughing and talking and being the family I'd forgotten I had. Rita was smart and funny, perfect for my brother. She worked as a social worker and had stories that made my design challenges seem insignificant. "You're different," Terrence said as we cleaned up after dinner. "Happier. Even with everything you're going through." "I'm free," I said simply. "That's worth more than I can explain." That night, after they left, I sat on my small balcony and looked out at the Brooklyn skyline. Lights twinkled in windows, lives being lived in all those apartments. Somewhere out there, Julian was probably with Simone, probably still angry about the divorce. But his anger couldn't touch me anymore. My phone buzzed. A text from Patricia, "Boston Hotel featured in Architecture Digest. They specifically praised your design. Congratulations." I pulled up the article and read about the fresh, innovative approach and the masterful use of color and light. My name was mentioned 3 times. 3 months ago, I'd been a woman having her marriage destroyed at dinner, humiliated and dismissed. Now I was a business owner, a designer making waves in the industry, a woman reclaiming her identity and power. Julian had thought leaving me would free him to be happy with Simone. He'd never considered that leaving me would free me to be happy with myself. 6 months after that terrible dinner, my company had grown beyond my wildest projections. We'd moved to a larger office space in Manhattan, 3 rooms with natural light streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. The walls were painted in soft cream with bright blue accents. Awards and magazine features lined one wall, each one a testament to work that was entirely mine. Patricia's Boston Hotel opened in November to rave reviews. Guests loved the design, posted photos on social media, left glowing comments about the welcoming atmosphere and beautiful spaces. Architecture Digest did a full feature spread, 6 pages of photos showing my color work and spatial planning. "You're building something special," Patricia told me at the opening celebration. "This is just the beginning." She was right. After the Boston success, offers poured in. A boutique hotel chain in California wanted me to redesign 5 properties. A major corporate headquarters in Chicago needed their executive floor reimagined. A series of upscale restaurants in Miami wanted a cohesive design that would make them Instagram famous. I had to turn down projects. Me turning down work, something I'd never imagined doing. By December, I'd hired 12 full-time employees and contracted with 3 specialized consultants. Rachel had been promoted to lead designer. Andre managed our growing project portfolio with the efficiency of a general commanding troops. We'd brought on a marketing specialist, an administrative coordinator, and a whole team of junior designers hungry to learn. Staff meeting, I called one Monday morning. Everyone gathered in our main room, coffee cups in hand. "I have news. We've been invited to bid on the renovation of the Grandview Hotel in Manhattan. It's a historic property, 200 rooms, a complete overhaul." Excited murmurs filled the room. The Grandview was legendary, one of the oldest hotels in the city. Landing that contract would cement our reputation. "It's a competitive bid," I continued. "We're up against 3 other firms, all bigger and more established. But I think we have something they don't. We have vision, we have passion, and we have a track record of exceeding expectations. Let's show them what we can do." The team worked around the clock on the proposal. I designed public spaces that honored the hotel's history while bringing it into the modern era. Grand ballrooms with emerald green velvet curtains and restored crystal chandeliers. Guest rooms with royal blue upholstered headboards and updated bathrooms that felt spa-like. A rooftop restaurant with floor-to-ceiling windows and living plant walls. We presented our bid on a cold January morning. The hotel's board sat around a massive conference table, 8 executives in expensive suits. I wore a maroon dress that made me feel powerful and professional. Traditional hotel renovations often erase character in pursuit of modernity. I began walking them through our presentation. We believe the Grandview deserves better. Our design honors the building's Art Deco heritage while creating spaces that today's travelers expect. I showed them renderings, explained the color choices, walked them through the flow of each floor. The board members leaned forward, engaged and interested. When I finished, the chairwoman smiled. "Miss Price, this is exceptional work. We'll be in touch within a week." 3 days later we got the contract. $2 million for the complete renovation. The biggest project in my company's history. "We did it," Rachel said when I announced the news. The whole office erupted in cheers. That night, I took my core team out to dinner at a nice restaurant overlooking the harbor. We toasted with champagne, celebrating not just the contract but everything we'd built together. "You know what I love about working here?" Andre said. "We're not just collecting paychecks. We're building something meaningful." "You're building something meaningful," Rachel corrected, looking at me. "We're just lucky to be part of it." "No," I said firmly. "We're building it together. Every person in this company contributes. That's what makes us special." While my business flourished, Julian's company struggled. I heard through industry contacts that he'd lost 3 major clients in the past 4 months. Word had spread about the affair, about the divorce, about how he'd treated his wife. In business circles where relationships mattered, his reputation had taken a serious hit. The Patterson account, the one I'd brought him, had switched to a competitor. The Jeune investment had been pulled. Other clients were quietly moving their business elsewhere. Beverly kept me updated on the divorce proceedings. Julian's lawyers had finally stopped stalling after our forensic accountant presented evidence of hidden assets to a judge. The judge had been unimpressed by Julian's attempts at deception and had issued a preliminary ruling that favored our position strongly. "He's going to settle," Beverly told me over lunch in February. "His lawyers know they can't win. The question is just the final numbers." "How much?" I asked. "Realistically? You'll get the Connecticut house, which you can sell. Half of all liquid assets, about $3 million. A percentage of Hartwell Enterprises' value, probably another $2 million. And ongoing support payments for 3 years. $5 million plus support payments. Enough to expand my business, to invest, to secure my future completely on my own terms." "When?" I asked. "Next month if we're lucky. His lawyers are trying to negotiate the business valuation down, but we have solid numbers. It's just posturing at this point." I thought about Julian receiving this news. Thought about how he'd assumed I would take whatever he offered, grateful for scraps from his table. The reality was going to hurt. But not as much as his betrayal had hurt me. That evening, I worked late at the office, refining details on the Grandview proposal implementation plan. Around 9 my phone rang. An unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Hello?" "Naomi." Julian's voice, strained and tired. "We need to talk." I hadn't heard his voice in months. Hearing it now felt strange, like listening to a recording of someone I used to know. "We have lawyers for that," I said calmly. "Please. Just 5 minutes." I should have hung up. Should have refused. But curiosity won out. "Fine. 5 minutes." "I made a mistake," Julian said quickly. "Simone and it's not working out. She's not you, Naomi. She doesn't understand me like you did." I waited, saying nothing. "I want to try again," he continued. "We can go to counseling, work through this. I know I hurt you, but we had something real. We can get it back." The words hung in the air. 6 months ago, hearing this might have broken me. Might have made me question everything. But now, sitting in my office, surrounded by evidence of everything I'd built without him, I felt nothing but pity. "No," I said simply. "Naomi, please. I love you. I never stopped loving you." "You loved having someone who made your life easier," I corrected. "You loved having a wife who networked for you, who hosted your parties, who sacrificed her own dreams so you could pursue yours. You didn't love me, Julian. You loved what I did for you." "That's not true." "It is though. And the proof is that you threw it all away the moment someone younger and more exciting came along. You didn't think about what we'd built together. You didn't consider what you were destroying. You just did what felt good in the moment. I'm sorry, he said, and his voice cracked. I'm so sorry, Naomi. I was stupid and selfish, and I threw away the best thing in my life. Yes, you did, I agreed. But the good news is I'm not in your life anymore. I have my own life now. A better one. Please. Just meet me for coffee. Let me explain. There's nothing to explain. You made your choice. Now I'm making mine. Naomi. Goodbye, Julian. Don't call me again. Anything you need to say, tell your lawyer. I hung up before he could respond. My hands were steady. My heart was calm. The woman who would have crumbled at his apology was gone, replaced by someone stronger. Beverly had been right. He was desperate now. The divorce settlement was bleeding him dry. His business was failing. Simone had probably left him, or at least the relationship wasn't the fantasy he'd imagined. And now he wanted to come crawling back, expecting me to save him like I always had. But I was done saving Julian Hartwell. I texted Beverly, Julian just called asking to reconcile. I refused. Thought you should know. Her response came quickly, good. Stay strong. We're almost done with this. I looked around my office at the designs covering the walls, at the awards we'd won, at the future we were building. Julian thought leaving me had set him free. He'd never understood that it had set me free instead. Spring arrived with cherry blossoms and longer days. The Grandview project was in full swing, transforming the historic hotel into something spectacular. I spent my days overseeing installations, approving materials, solving unexpected problems that arose during renovation. The work was demanding but deeply satisfying. One afternoon in April, I was at the Grandview site when my phone rang. Beverly. We have a settlement offer, she said without preamble. Julian's lawyers sent it over this morning. I stepped into a quiet corridor, away from the construction noise. And? $5.2 million in assets, including the Connecticut property. 3 years of support payments at $15,000 per month. Plus, he's dropping all claims to any of your current or future business earnings. The numbers were more than fair. They were generous, actually, which meant Julian was truly desperate. What's the catch? I asked. He wants it finalized quickly. Within 2 weeks. I think his financial situation is worse than we realized. Let me think about it. Naomi, Beverly's voice was gentle. This is a good offer. Better than what we'd likely get if we went to trial. I know you're angry and you have every right to be. But sometimes the best revenge is walking away with what you deserve and moving on with your life. She was right. This wasn't about punishing Julian anymore. It was about securing my future and closing this chapter completely. Okay, I said. Accept the offer. 2 weeks later, I sat in Beverly's office and signed the final divorce papers. Julian was in a different conference room, signing identical documents. We didn't see each other. Didn't speak. The marriage ended with paperwork and signatures, clinical and cold. Congratulations, Beverly said when it was done. You're officially divorced. The word felt strange. Divorced, but also liberating. I was no longer bound to Julian's choices, his betrayal, his life. Thank you, I told Beverly. For everything. I couldn't have done this without you. You did the hard part, she replied. You had the courage to fight for yourself. That's not easy. I took Beverly to dinner that night, a thank you for months of support. We talked about business, about life, about the future. She mentioned that her firm was looking to expand their client base. I'm thinking about starting a division focused on supporting women entrepreneurs, Beverly said. Women building businesses, negotiating contracts, protecting their interests. Would you be interested in being a founding client? Absolutely, I said. I'd be honored. The divorce settlement money hit my account 3 days later. $5.2 million. I stared at the number on my screen, barely able to process it. More money than I'd ever imagined having. I met with a financial advisor, a sharp woman named Angela Chen who specialized in working with entrepreneurs. We created an investment strategy, putting aside money for business expansion, for retirement, for security. For the first time in my life, I had financial independence that didn't depend on anyone else. What are your goals? Angela asked during our second meeting. I want to grow my business, I said. Maybe open offices in other cities. I want to create opportunities for other designers. And I want to make sure I'm never dependent on someone else for my financial security again. Those are good goals, Angela said. Let's build a plan to make them happen. While I was building my future, Julian's was falling apart. Terrence heard things through his network and would occasionally update me, though I never asked. His company is in trouble, Terrence told me over dinner at my apartment one evening. Lost another major client last week. Word is he might have to sell. I felt a twinge of something. Not satisfaction exactly. Maybe just acknowledgement that actions have consequences. What about Simone? I asked, surprising myself with the question. Left him 2 months ago, Terrence said. Apparently she started seeing one of his former business partners. Someone wealthier. Rita, sitting beside my brother, shook her head. That's what happens when relationships are built on shallow things. Once the money and status dry up, there's nothing left. I thought about Julian's phone call, his desperate plea to reconcile. He'd lost everything he thought mattered. The business success, the beautiful mistress, the lifestyle he'd taken for granted. And now he was alone with the consequences of his choices. Do you feel vindicated? Rita asked. Seeing him struggle? I considered the question carefully. No, I said finally. I just feel free. What happens to Julian now isn't my concern. He's not part of my life anymore. And that was the truth. Julian's downfall didn't make me happy. It just made me grateful that I'd escaped before I was pulled down with him. The Grandview renovation was completed in June. The grand reopening was a spectacular event, with press coverage and industry leaders in attendance. I wore a stunning emerald green gown and spent the evening being congratulated by clients, competitors, and colleagues. The hotel was magnificent. The grand ballroom sparkled with restored chandeliers and elegant emerald drapes. The guest rooms felt both classic and contemporary, with royal blue accents and modern amenities. The rooftop restaurant had become an instant sensation with a waiting list weeks long. You've created something extraordinary, the hotel chairwoman told me. This renovation isn't just good. It's iconic. More magazine features followed. More awards. More clients. Naomi Price Interiors and Events was becoming a recognized name in the industry, known for sophisticated design that balanced tradition with innovation. In July, I opened a second office in Los Angeles. Rachel moved out to run it, taking 3 junior designers with her. We hired locally to fill out the team. Suddenly, I had 2 offices, 18 employees, and projects spanning the country. You're building an empire, Andre said during a strategy meeting. We need to think about infrastructure, about systems that can scale. He was right. We hired a chief operations officer, brought in HR expertise, invested in project management software. My small design studio was becoming a real company with structure and sustainability. Through it all, I made sure to maintain balance. I had dinner with my mother every Sunday. Terrence and Rita came over regularly. I joined a book club with other professional women. I took a painting class, rediscovering the artistic expression that had drawn me to design in the first place. I even started dating again. Nothing serious, just coffee dates and occasional dinners. Testing the waters, seeing what it felt like to be pursued by men who wanted to know me, not use me. One evening in August, I attended a gallery opening in Chelsea. The space was bright and modern, filled with abstract paintings in bold colors. I was standing in front of a particularly striking piece, mostly blue with red accents, when someone spoke beside me. Beautiful, isn't it? The way the artist uses color to create emotion. I turned to find a man about my age, tall with warm brown skin and kind eyes. He wore a green button-down shirt and jeans, casual but well put together. It is, I agreed. The contrast between the cool blues and the warm reds creates this interesting tension. You have a good eye, he said, smiling. Are you an artist? Designer, actually. Interior design and event planning. Ah, so you work with color and space professionally. I'm Christopher Bennett. I'm an architect. We talked for an hour about design and art and the challenge of creating spaces that serve both function and beauty. Christopher was thoughtful and funny, asking real questions and listening to the answers. When the gallery closed, he asked for my number. I'd like to take you to dinner, he said. If you're interested. I hesitated. Was I ready for this? But looking at Christopher's genuine smile, his respectful demeanor, I realized that maybe I was. I'd like that, I said. Walking home that night, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Not just for my business or my career, but for my personal life. For the possibility of connection built on mutual respect and genuine interest. Julian had thought he was trading up when he left me for Simone. But he'd actually been trading away the only real thing he had. And now I was free to find something real for myself. My first date with Christopher was at a small Italian restaurant in the West Village. He showed up exactly on time, holding a single red rose. I know it's traditional, he said with a slightly embarrassed smile, but I like some traditions. The restaurant was cozy and bright, with large windows facing the street and cheerful yellow walls. We sat at a corner table and talked for 3 hours, conversation flowing easily from topic to topic. Christopher was originally from Philadelphia, had moved to New York for architecture school and never left. He specialized in sustainable design, creating buildings that worked with their environment rather than against it. "I believe spaces should serve people and the planet," he explained. "Beautiful architecture doesn't have to be wasteful." I told him about my company, about the journey from Julian's wife to independent business owner. Christopher listened without judgment, his expression thoughtful. "That takes real courage," he said. "Starting over after someone tries to diminish you. You should be proud." "I am," I said. And I realized it was true. I was proud of myself. He didn't try to kiss me that night, just walked me to the subway entrance and asked if he could see me again. "Yes," I said. "I'd really like that." We started seeing each other regularly. Dinner dates, museum visits, long walks through different neighborhoods while he pointed out interesting architectural details. Christopher was patient and kind, never pushing for more than I was ready to give. "I like taking things slow," he told me on our 4th date. "Getting to know someone properly, building something real. Is that okay with you?" "It's perfect," I said. The Grandview success led to more high-profile projects. A luxury apartment building in Miami hired me to design all the common spaces. A tech company in Seattle wanted me to create an innovative office environment. Patricia's hotel chain expanded, giving me 3 more properties to work on simultaneously. I hired another 6 people and promoted Andre to Chief Operating Officer. We opened a 3rd office, this one in Chicago, to handle our Midwest projects. My company now had 30 employees across 3 cities and a reputation for excellence. "You're doing something most people only dream about," my mother said one Sunday over dinner. "Building a successful business from scratch." "I had help," I reminded her. "Patricia gave me that first chance. Beverly fought for me in the divorce. You and Terrence supported me emotionally. None of this happened alone." "But you had to have the strength to accept help," my mother replied. "That's harder than people think." In September, I was invited to speak at a conference for women entrepreneurs. Standing on that stage, looking out at 300 faces, I felt a responsibility to be honest about my journey. "I was married to a billionaire," I began. "I lived in a beautiful house, wore expensive clothes, attended elite parties. From the outside, my life looked perfect. But I'd lost myself. I'd made my husband's dreams more important than my own, and when he left me for someone else, I thought my world had ended." I paused, scanning the audience. It hadn't ended. It had just begun. Because for the first time in years, I had to figure out who I was without someone else defining me. And what I discovered was that I'm capable of so much more than I'd believed. The speech received a standing ovation. Afterward, dozens of women approached me, sharing their own stories of rebuilding after loss, of finding courage to pursue their dreams. "You inspired me," one young woman said, tears in her eyes. "I've been in a relationship where my partner diminishes my ambitions. After hearing you, I know I need to leave." These conversations reminded me why my story mattered. Not for revenge against Julian, but as proof that you can rebuild after devastation. That endings can be beginnings. Christopher and I grew closer as fall progressed. He met Terrence and Rita and they approved immediately. "He's good for you," Terrence said after a double-date dinner. "He sees you for who you are." "That's the difference," I agreed. Julian loved what I could do for him. Christopher loves who I am. In October, Christopher invited me to meet his family. His parents lived in New Jersey, a comfortable house filled with photographs and warmth. His mother hugged me like I was already part of the family. "Christopher has told us so much about you," she said. "Your business sounds wonderful." His father, a retired teacher, asked thoughtful questions about design and entrepreneurship. His younger sister, a nurse, bonded with me over stories of demanding careers. "They love you," Christopher said on the drive back to the city. My mom asked when I was going to propose. "That's fast," I said, laughing. "I told her we're taking our time," he replied. "But for what it's worth, I can see a future with you. No pressure, just honesty." His words settled into my heart. A future. With someone who saw me, valued me, respected me. It felt possible in a way nothing had since my marriage ended. The divorce settlement support payments ended in November, but I didn't need them anymore. My company was profitable and growing. I'd invested wisely, built savings, created security. I was financially independent in a way I'd never been, even during my marriage. Julian tried to contact me one more time in December. An email, not a phone call. I heard about your success, he wrote. I always knew you were talented. I'm sorry I didn't appreciate it when we were together. I hope you're happy, Naomi. You deserve happiness. I read the email once, then deleted it without responding. His apology didn't matter anymore. His regret couldn't change the past. All that mattered was the future I was building. That Christmas, I hosted a party at my Brooklyn apartment. Not a formal business event like the ones I used to organize for Julian, but a real celebration with real friends. Beverly came, and Patricia and Angela, my financial advisor. Terrence and Rita brought my mother. Christopher's family drove in from Jersey. My whole team from all 3 offices showed up, crowding into my space with laughter and music. Look at this, Rachel said, gesturing around the room. Look at what you've built. Not just the business but this community. These relationships. She was right. The room was full of people who genuinely cared about each other, who celebrated each other's successes. This was wealth. Not money or status but connection and meaning. Christopher found me in the kitchen where I was refilling the appetizer platters. You look happy, he said. I am happy, I replied. Really truly happy. For the first time in years. Good, he said, kissing my forehead. You deserve it. As the party wound down and guests started leaving, I stood on my small balcony looking out at the Brooklyn lights. 1 year ago, I'd been signing divorce papers, closing a painful chapter. Now I was surrounded by success and love and possibility. Julian had declared his love for another woman and expected my tears. Instead, I'd given him silence and built a life so full and rich that his presence in it seemed like a distant, unimportant memory. The best revenge, I'd learned, wasn't punishment. It was thriving. January brought cold winds and new opportunities. A developer in Boston wanted to hire me for a massive mixed-use project, combining residential, commercial, and hospitality spaces. The contract was worth $8 million and would take 2 years to complete. This is the big one, Andre said when we reviewed the proposal. This establishes us as a major player, not just a successful boutique firm. I knew he was right. This project would change everything, would require hiring more staff, opening a 4th office, committing to a level of growth that felt both exciting and terrifying. Let's do it, I decided. Let's show them what we're capable of. We spent February preparing our pitch. The whole team contributed ideas, and the proposal we developed was innovative and comprehensive. We presented in early March, and the developers awarded us the contract on the spot. You're building something special, the lead developer told me. We want to be part of it. That evening, I celebrated with Christopher. We went to the same Italian restaurant where we'd had our first date, a tradition we'd fallen into. I have something to ask you, Christopher said after we'd ordered. He looked nervous, his hands fidgeting with his napkin. Okay, I said, suddenly nervous myself. I know we've only been dating for 7 months, he began. And I know you're just coming out of a difficult situation. But Naomi, I love you. Not because of your success or your business. I love who you are, how you think, the way you care about people. And I want to build a life with you. He pulled out a small velvet box and opened it, revealing a simple emerald ring that caught the light beautifully. Will you marry me? My breath caught. Marriage. The word carried weight, carried the memory of promises broken and trust betrayed. But looking at Christopher's honest face, his genuine love, I felt something different. Hope, trust, the possibility of a partnership built on mutual respect. Yes, I said, surprising myself. Yes, I'll marry you. Christopher's face lit up with pure joy. He slipped the ring on my finger and I realized I was crying. Happy tears this time, not the bitter ones I'd shed over Julian. We told our families the next day. My mother cried and hugged Christopher, welcoming him to the family. Terrence shook his hand firmly, giving him a speech about treating me right that made us all laugh. I plan to, Christopher promised. Every single day. The engagement brought a new kind of happiness, different from business success or financial security. This was about partnership, about sharing life with someone who truly saw and valued me. I was working late at the office on a Tuesday evening in late March when the receptionist buzzed my line. Miss Price, there's someone here to see you. Julian Hartwell. He doesn't have an appointment, but he says it's important. My stomach dropped. Julian. Here. After all these months. Give me 5 minutes, I said. Then send him back. I used the time to compose myself, to remember who I was now. Not the broken woman he'd left, but a successful business owner, an entrepreneur, someone with purpose and power. Julian looked different when he walked into my office. Thinner, older somehow. His suit was expensive but rumpled, and there were dark circles under his green eyes. This wasn't the confident billionaire who'd ordered dessert after destroying my life. This was someone who'd lost everything. "Naomi," he said, standing awkwardly in my doorway. "Thank you for seeing me." "You have 10 minutes, I said coldly. "What do you want?" "I wanted to see you. To talk face to face." He looked around my office, taking in the awards on the walls, the designs pinned to boards, the evidence of success. "You've done well. Better than well. What do you want, Julian?" He sat in the visitor chair without being invited. "I made a terrible mistake. The worst mistake of my life. Leaving you, choosing Simone, throwing away everything we built together." "We didn't build anything together," I corrected. "I built you up while tearing myself down. That's not partnership." "You're right," he said quickly. "I know that now. I took advantage of you, of your kindness and support. I didn't appreciate what I had." "You're here because Simone left you," I said. "Because your business is failing. Because you're lonely and desperate. Not because you actually love me." Julian flinched. "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" I leaned back in my chair. "If your business was still thriving, if Simone was still with you, would you be here begging for another chance?" He didn't answer, which was answer enough. "I've been following your success," he admitted. "Reading about you in magazines, seeing your projects featured online. You're doing things I never thought possible. You're brilliant, Naomi. I was a fool not to see it." "You saw it," I said quietly. "You just didn't care. You were happy to use my talents when they benefited you, but you never wanted me to shine on my own." "That's not true. Julian, you convinced me to give up my career to support yours. You made me feel selfish every time I mentioned my own ambitions. You kept me small so you could feel big. And when someone younger and more exciting came along, you discarded me like I meant nothing." "I'm sorry," he said, and tears welled in his eyes. "I'm so sorry. I'd do anything to make it right." "There is no making it right," I said firmly. "What's done is done. You made your choices and now you have to live with them." "Please, Naomi. I love you. I need you." "You need someone to save you," I corrected. "Someone to rebuild your business, to fix your reputation, to make you feel successful again. But I'm not that person anymore. I have my own life now, my own success. I don't need you, Julian. And that's what really bothers you, isn't it? That I'm better off without you." His face crumbled. "Don't say that. It's the truth. You thought leaving me would set you free to be happy. Instead, it freed me. I discovered who I am, what I'm capable of, what I deserve. And I deserve so much more than a man who sees me as a tool for his own advancement." "I've changed," Julian insisted desperately. "Losing everything taught me what matters. Give me another chance. Let me prove I can be the husband you deserved from the beginning." I looked at this man I'd once loved, this broken version of the person who'd humiliated me at dinner. I felt no satisfaction in his suffering. But I felt no sympathy either. Just a calm certainty about what needed to happen. "No," I said simply. "I won't give you another chance. Naomi." "I'm engaged," I said, holding up my left hand to show the emerald ring. "To a wonderful man who values me, who supports my dreams, who treats me like an equal partner. I'm building a life with him, a real partnership based on mutual respect." Julian stared at the ring like it had personally betrayed him. "You're engaged? Already?" "It's been over a year, Julian. Did you expect me to wait around hoping you'd come back?" I thought." He trailed off, unable to finish. "You thought I'd always be available," I finished for him. "Always waiting, always willing to take you back no matter how badly you treated me. But that woman is gone. She died at that dinner when you chose someone else. What rose from those ashes is someone stronger, someone who knows her worth." Julian stood up abruptly. "This is my fault. All of it. I destroyed the best thing in my life because I was arrogant and stupid. And now I have to live with that." "Yes," I said without cruelty. "You do." He walked to the door, then turned back. "I hope he makes you happy. You deserve happiness, Naomi. You always did." "I know," I said. "Thank you for finally realizing it." After he left, I sat at my desk for a long moment, processing the encounter. I'd expected to feel something, triumph or vindication or closure. Instead, I just felt peaceful. Julian's approval or regret didn't matter anymore. His opinion of me, whether high or low, carried no weight. I texted Christopher. Julian showed up at my office. Asked for another chance. I said no. His response came quickly. "Are you okay?" "Better than okay. Coming home soon. Love you." "Love you too. Can't wait to hear about it." Driving home through the Manhattan evening, I thought about the woman I'd been a year ago. Devastated, lost, uncertain. And the woman I was now. Strong, successful, loved. The journey between those two versions hadn't been easy. But it had been worth every difficult step. Julian had expected tears when he declared his love for another woman. Instead, I'd given him silence and built a life he could never touch. And now, when he came back begging, I'd given him rejection and shown him exactly what he'd lost. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I finally understood my own value. 1 year later, on a bright April morning, I stood in my Brooklyn apartment getting ready for the biggest day of my professional life. Naomi Price Interiors and Events was celebrating its second anniversary with a gala event showcasing our completed projects and announcing our expansion plans. The event was being held at the Grandview Hotel in the ballroom I'd designed. The symmetry felt perfect. "You look beautiful," Rita said, adjusting my dress. I'd chosen a stunning royal blue gown with gold accents, elegant and powerful. My natural hair was styled in soft curls, and my makeup highlighted my warm brown skin. "Thank you for being here," I told her. "For being part of this journey." "Are you kidding?" Rita laughed. "We wouldn't miss this for anything." My mother arrived with Terrence, both dressed in their finest. My mother wore maroon, Terrence wore a sharp green suit. They'd been my support system through everything, and I wanted them front and center tonight. Christopher arrived last, wearing a navy suit that made him look distinguished and handsome. He kissed me gently. "Ready to celebrate everything you've built?" he asked. "More than ready," I said. The ballroom was spectacular. We decorated it with fresh flowers in blue, green, and red. Large screens displayed images of our completed projects. Hotels, corporate offices, restaurants, residential buildings. 2 years of work showcased in one beautiful space. 300 people attended. Clients, colleagues, competitors, press. Beverly came with her husband. Patricia brought her whole executive team. My entire staff from all 4 offices was there, dressed up and proud. Angela Chin, Christopher's family, friends from the networking groups I joined. The room hummed with conversation and laughter. I took the stage at 8, looking out at all these people who'd helped me build this dream. 2 years ago, I began. I was at my lowest point. My marriage had ended, my confidence was shattered, and I wasn't sure if I could rebuild my life. But standing here tonight, looking at all of you, I realized that ending was the best thing that could have happened to me. I paused, letting that sink in. Because it forced me to discover who I was without someone else defining me. It made me realize that I was capable of so much more than I'd believed. And it taught me that success isn't about money or status. It's about building something meaningful with people who value and respect you. I shared highlights from our 2 years. The Boston Hotel, the Grandview renovation, the corporate offices and restaurants. Each project represented not just design work but relationships built, challenges overcome, dreams realized. Tonight, I'm announcing 2 major developments, I continued. First, we're opening our 5th office in Denver, expanding our Western presence. Second, we're launching a mentorship program for young designers, particularly women of color, who want to break into the industry. Because I had people who believed in me when I needed it most, and I want to pay that forward. The applause was thunderous. I saw my mother crying, saw Beverly beaming with pride, saw my whole team celebrating. After the speech, I mingled with guests. Patricia pulled me aside. "You've exceeded every expectation," she said. "Not just as a designer but as a leader and businesswoman. I'm honored to have been part of your journey. You gave me my first chance," I reminded her. "You believed in me when I was just starting over." "I recognize talent," Patricia corrected. "You did the work." Christopher found me later, bringing me a glass of champagne. "How does it feel?" he asked. "Standing in a room full of people celebrating you?" "Surreal," I admitted. "Good surreal though. You know what I love most about tonight?" Christopher said. "It's not about proving anything to anyone. You're not celebrating to show Julian what he lost or to prove your worth to people who doubted you. You're celebrating because you built something real that you're genuinely proud of." He was right. This night wasn't about revenge or validation. It was about joy. About looking at what I'd created and feeling deep satisfaction. As the evening wound down, I stepped out onto the hotel's rooftop terrace. The city spread out before me, lights twinkling in the darkness. I thought about the woman I'd been 2 years ago, sitting in that restaurant while her husband destroyed her world. She'd had no idea what was coming. The pain, yes, but also the growth. The discovery of her own strength. The building of something entirely her own. The finding of real love and partnership. "There you are," Terrence said, joining me on the terrace. "Hiding from your own party?" "Just taking a moment," I said. My brother put his arm around my shoulders. I'm proud of you, sis. Not just for the business, though that's incredible. I'm proud of how you handled everything. How you turned pain into purpose. I had a lot of help, I said. You had support, Terrence corrected. But the courage was all yours. We stood there for a moment, brother and sister, looking at the city we both called home. Do you ever think about Julian? Terrence asked. Wonder what happened to him? Sometimes, I admitted. But it doesn't hurt anymore. He's just someone I used to know, someone who was part of my story but isn't part of my present. That's growth, Terrence said. Real growth. Christopher came looking for us. Your team wants to do a toast, he said. Back inside, Andre stood on a chair and called for everyone's attention. To Naomi, he said, raising his glass. Who turned a devastating setback into an incredible comeback. Who built a company based on talent, integrity, and vision. Who proves every day that the best revenge is living well. To Naomi, the room echoed, glasses raised. I looked around at these faces, these people who'd become my work family, my support system, my community. This was what success looked like. Not a big house or a wealthy husband, but meaningful work and genuine relationships. The party ended around midnight. Christopher drove me home, both of us tired but happy. Your second anniversary, he said as we pulled up to my building. Can you imagine what the third will be like? The fourth. Actually, I said, I've been thinking about that. About our future. We went upstairs, kicked off our formal shoes and settled on the couch. Christopher waited patiently for me to gather my thoughts. I want to marry you this year, I said. Small wedding, just family and close friends. Nothing elaborate. Just real. That sounds perfect, Christopher said, smiling. When? Summer. Maybe August. At my mother's house, in the backyard where I used to play as a kid. Surrounded by the people who matter most. I love that idea, Christopher said. Simple and meaningful. We spent the next hour planning, talking about vows and flowers and what kind of cake we wanted. Planning a wedding with Christopher felt completely different from planning my wedding to Julian. This was collaborative, joyful, focused on celebrating our commitment rather than impressing others. You know what's funny? I said. 2 years ago, if someone had told me I'd be engaged again, planning another wedding, I would have laughed. I thought my heart was too broken to ever trust again. But you healed, Christopher said softly. You did the hard work of putting yourself back together. And I found someone worth trusting, I added. Someone who treats me like an equal partner. That night, lying in bed, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. Julian's betrayal, which had felt like the end of my world, had actually been the beginning of my real life. Every painful step had led to something better. I'd learned that I was capable of building success on my own terms. That my worth wasn't dependent on someone else's recognition. That endings could be beginnings if you had the courage to start again. My phone buzzed with a text from Beverly. Incredible event tonight. So proud of everything you've accomplished. You're an inspiration. I smiled and typed back, thank you for fighting for me. For showing me I deserved better. Her response came quickly, you showed yourself that. I just helped with the paperwork. The next morning, I woke up to sunshine streaming through my bedroom windows. Christopher was still asleep beside me. My emerald engagement ring caught the light, reminding me of promises made and a future full of possibility. I got up quietly and made coffee, standing at my kitchen window looking out at Brooklyn waking up. My company was thriving. My personal life was full and happy. I had family, friends, love, purpose. Everything I'd thought I lost when Julian left me. But I hadn't lost anything. I'd shed the weight of a relationship that made me smaller. I'd escaped a life that wasn't really mine. And in the empty space Julian left behind, I discovered myself. My billionaire husband had declared his love for another woman at dinner, expecting tears and devastation. He'd gotten silence and strength instead. And in the 2 years since that night, I'd built an empire of my own making. The best revenge, I'd learned, wasn't destroying Julian or making him suffer. The best revenge was thriving. Building a life so full and rich that his absence in it didn't matter. Becoming someone so successful and happy that his betrayal became the best thing that ever happened to me. I raised my coffee cup to my reflection in the window, to the woman who'd survived heartbreak and built something beautiful from the ashes. To new beginnings, I whispered. And to having the courage to become who you're meant to be. Outside, the city was alive with possibility. And inside, I was finally, completely home.